Today, we're diving headfirst into a really significant legal shift unfolding in India. Picture this. The bustling halls of Parliament, a new controversy erupting, and high-profile leaders potentially facing automatic removal from office.
It's quite dramatic.
Absolutely. We're talking about 3 new bills introduced in the Lok Sabha. As of August 2025, they proposed something pretty radical.
Which is?
Automatically removing top leaders, think prime ministers, chief ministers, other ministers, if they're arrested and kept in custody for 30 consecutive days.
Wow, that's quite something.
It is. And our mission today is basically to cut through the noise, give you a clear picture of these proposals, the intense political firestorm they've already ignited, and what it all really means for democracy in India.
And it really goes to the heart of a fundamental tension, doesn't it? It's this balancing act. How do you make sure leaders are accountable?
Right.
Without sort of accidentally creating a tool that could be misused for political ends. It touches on history, current politics, everything. It's not just law. It's about the future shape of governance.
So let's unpack what some are calling the timeout rule.
Hmm.
Can you lay out the core mechanism for us?
Sure. So the central idea in these 3 bills is pretty straightforward, though the impact is huge. If a prime minister, a chief minister, or a minister at either the union or state level gets arrested,
Okay.
and they remain in custody for 30 days straight consecutively on charges that could lead to a jail term of 5 years or more,
All right.
then boom, by the 31st day, they're automatically considered removed from office. The post becomes vacant.
Just like that, automatically.
That's the proposal. Swift, decisive, as you said earlier.
And how does that work procedurally?
Well, the bills specify a prime minister would need to tender their resignation to the president. For a chief minister, the governor steps in either accepting the CM's resignation or, if none is offered, declaring the office vacant. Same logic applies to ministers in union territories.
Okay, but is there any way out? Any kind of safety net?
Yes, there are a couple of important points. Firstly, this isn't about being found guilty. It's triggered by prolonged detention before conviction.
Right, detention, not conviction. Got it.
Secondly, there's the possibility of reappointment if the person is eventually released. And crucially, the person arrested has that 30-day window to try and secure bail. If they get bail before day 31, they avoid the automatic removal.
So it's a race against time, essentially.
Exactly. A 30-day countdown once you're in custody on serious charges.
It kind of makes me think of, say, a really strict office policy. If you're out unexpectedly for a whole month, maybe your access card gets deactivated, your desk gets cleared. For efficiency, maybe it makes sense.
Interesting analogy.
But then the big what if. What if the reason you were out the arrest, the charges, what if that was cooked up by a rival colleague just to get you out of the way?
And that is precisely the core of the debate, the central fear.
Yeah. Supporters say, look, this stops governments being run from jail cells, which sounds reasonable on the surface.
But the critics jump right on that analogy you made. They see it as a massive potential loophole, a way for political vendettas to play out through the legal system.
So you could use central agencies, maybe, to arrest opponents on, let's say, questionable grounds.
Trigger the 30-day clock.
And force them out of office without needing a conviction.
That's the worry, that the law itself becomes a political weapon, basically turning judicial processes into a direct tool for shifting political power. It's unprecedented in that way.
Which brings us to the timing. Why now? What's the spark for pushing such a, potentially explosive change right now? These things don't usually just pop up overnight.
No, they certainly don't. And there's a pretty clear context here. It's really emerged against the backdrop of some very high-profile cases recently. Cases that have, really pushed the boundaries of what's considered acceptable conduct for leaders under investigation.
You're talking about people like Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi.
Exactly. The Delhi chief minister arrested in that liquor policy case, but he continued issuing orders from custody. That caused a huge stir.
And Hemant Soren in Sharkan too, right?
Yeah.
Similar situation.
Yes, arrested in a money laundering probe, facing scrutiny for holding on to his position initially. And then there was V. Senthil Balaji in Tamil Nadu jailed, but remained a minister without portfolio for a time.
Right. So these cases definitely fueled a kind of public debate. Maybe even resentment.
Absolutely. People were asking, how can leaders accused of serious crimes continue to govern, sometimes literally from behind bars? It raised serious ethical questions.
And the Home Minister has been quite forceful in defending these bills, linking them directly to these situations.
He has. He's framed it very much as needing to restore moral standards in politics. His argument is that, look, the Constitution's framers probably couldn't have imagined a situation where leaders facing serious charges would simply refuse to resign on ethical grounds.
He even brought up his own history, didn't he?
He did. He pointed back to 2010 when he was Gujarat's home minister. He was arrested in the Soren Sheikh case, and he emphasized that he resigned immediately and didn't hold any constitutional post until he was cleared years later in 2014.
So he's contrasting his past actions with what we've seen recently.
Precisely. Implying that because some leaders don't resign voluntarily now, there needs to be a law to compel it, to stop this idea of running governments from jail.
And this fits into a wider pattern too, doesn't it? The ruling parties push on anti-corruption, cleaning up the system.
Yes, it aligns with their broader narrative. Remember, just last year, in 2023, they undertook that massive overhaul of the old colonial-era criminal laws, the IPC, CRPC Evidence Act, replacing them with new Indian codes.
The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and the others.
Exactly. So these new bills can be seen as sort of another step in that direction, modernizing, perhaps indigenizing accountability, as they might frame it.
But the opposition sees it very differently. They're suggesting the timing is convenient.
Well, yes. They're pointing to the political calendar. You've got elections coming up in Bihar, which are always significant. And then there's Rahul Gandhi's Vote Adhikar Yatra, this big nationwide march focusing on democratic rights.
Which has been getting a lot of attention.
Oh, it has. So the opposition's claim is maybe this whole bill controversy is partly a diversion, a way to shift the national conversation away from the issues the Yatra is raising and back onto the government's preferred ground of anti-corruption.
Interesting political maneuvering possibly at play there.
It's certainly part of the conversation.
Okay, so this charged atmosphere sets the stage for what you called a federalism firestorm.
Yeah.
What are we seeing in terms of reactions, especially from within the governing coalition itself?
Ah, yes, this is really fascinating. The reactions from the NDA's key allies, specifically the JDU from Bihar and the TDP from Andhra Pradesh, are crucial because, well, they hold the balance of power right now.
Their support is essential for the government's stability.
Absolutely. And their responses to these bills have been, let's say, notably cautious, very reserved. We haven't seen enthusiastic endorsements. Instead, leaders are mostly saying things like, we'll wait for the Joint Parliamentary Committee, or the JPC will discuss it.
So kicking it down the road a bit.
It feels like that. For instance, a close aide to Nitish Kumar, JDU MP Sanjay Kumar Jar, basically sidestepped taking a direct stance, saying the party hadn't even discussed it yet. And the TDP's union minister, Ramahan Naidu, while trying to dismiss opposition claims that the bills target allies, still added that, they'd study it in the JTC and address any concerns. The caution is almost palpable.
Why so hesitant, do you think? What's behind that caution?
Well, analysts are pointing fingers in a couple of directions. Firstly, these parties or their leaders have had their own, shall we say, encounters with central agencies or legal probes in the past.
Right, you mentioned N. Chandrababu Naidu's arrest last year.
Exactly. He spent time in custody in that skill development scam case. And Nitish Kumar has certainly seen ministers in his governments face investigations over the years. So there's a potential sensitivity there.
So the opposition's charge is that these bills might be a subtle threat. Keep allies in line.
That's the allegation you hear whispered, yes. Almost like a big brother holding the remote dynamic within the coalition. Cooperate, or you too could find yourself vulnerable to these provisions. Social media is buzzing with commentary about how cagey these allies seem.
Okay, so allies are cautious. What about the opposition parties outside the NDA?
Oh, they are anything but cautious. Their reaction has been fierce, immediate, and almost universally condemnatory.
We saw some dramatic scenes in the Lok Sabha itself, didn't we?
We did. When the bills were introduced, Trinamool Congress MP Kalyan Banerjee actually tore up copies of the bills right there on the floor. It led to quite a commotion.
And the rhetoric has been strong.
Extremely strong. K.C. Venugopal from the Congress called it a dangerous bill, attacking the heart of federalism. AMIM leader Asaduddin Owaisi went even further, didn't mince words, calling it an attempt to create a police state.
A police state? That's strong language.
It is, and it reflects the depth of the fear here.
So what is that core fear distilled down? What's the fundamental objection?
It really boils down to the erosion of India's federal structure, the balance of power between the central government and the states. The worry is that central agencies like the Enforcement Directorate, the ED, or the CBI
which report to the central government.
Exactly. The fear is that these agencies could be, well, weaponized, used to deliberately target and arrest opposition leaders in states, maybe on politically motivated or flimsy charges, just to trigger this 30-day automatic removal without needing a court conviction.
Like giving the referee a whistle that only blows one way, as you put it earlier.
That's the image, yes. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra summed up this anxiety starkly. She warned, basically, that tomorrow any chief minister could face some case, be arrested for 30 days without conviction, and just like that, they're out of a job. That's the chilling prospect for the opposition.
Now, is it completely unanimous in the opposition camp? Or is there any nuance?
There's a little bit. It's mostly unified condemnation, but you did have someone like Shashi Tharoor, the Congress MP, who, while definitely raising serious concerns about the potential for misuse, did also say he thought the underlying proposal itself was reasonable. So a slightly different emphasis there, acknowledging the problem of leaders governing from jail, even while fearing the solution.
Interesting. But meanwhile, the government keeps pushing back hard on these fears.
They do. Their public stance remains firm. This is about clean governance. It's about accountability. It's not about political control. The Home Minister explicitly questioned the ethics, asking, is it right for a minister to run a government from jail?
They're framing it as responding to public anger.
Yes, highlighting what they call the menace of jailed leaders clinging to power and portraying these bills as a necessary step towards zero tolerance for corruption. The official statement of objects for the bills even says that ministers' conduct should be beyond any ray of suspicion. They're really leaning into the high moral ground argument.
It's helpful to put this in historical context, too. India has seen leaders arrested before, hasn't it? This isn't entirely new territory.
Not entirely new, no. You can trace instances back decades. The emergency in the 1970s saw widespread arrests of opposition figures, though under very different circumstances, obviously suspension of rights, etc.
Right.
More recently, as we discussed, there's been this wave, maybe 2020 to 2025, where quite a few CMs or ministers have faced detention, Kejriwal, Soren, others, including even some associated with BJP allies at the state level.
But the key difference now is the legal consequence.
Absolutely. That's the critical point. Currently, there's no law that says you're automatically out of office just because you've been arrested. Disqualification only happens upon conviction under the Representation of the People Act.
So responses have been based more on ethics or political pressure.
Exactly. And they varied wildly. You had Lalu Prasad Yadav resigning as Bihar CM back in 1997 when charged in the fodder scam. But others, more recently, have tried to hold on. These new bills aim to remove that ambiguity, to standardize a response legally.
What are legal experts saying about this? Is there a consensus?
Oh, definitely not a consensus. Opinions seem quite divided. You have respected figures like Professor Faizan Mustafa warning quite clearly that these bills are vulnerable to misuse, especially, he argues, if the investigative agencies like the ED and CBI aren't genuinely independent of political influence.
Which is a long-standing debate in itself.
It is, but then you have other commentators suggesting that, look, if implemented carefully, if there are safeguards, these laws could potentially help restore some moral authority in politics. There are also economists chiming in, raising concerns about the potential for political instability in states if governments can be destabilized so easily through arrests.
So it really cuts deep into the structure of governance.
It absolutely does. Can you cleanse the system, assuming that's the goal, without fundamentally undermining its checks and balances? That's the dilemma.
So let's try and synthesize this. When we look at the bigger picture, what's really at stake here?
I think it boils down to that delicate, often fraught balance of federalism in India, the relationship between the center and the states.
And the potential for misuse seems to be the biggest flashpoint.
Definitely. The fear is it could lead to more frequent imposition of president's rule in states where the opposition governs, effectively destabilizing elected governments through central action. Imagine the implications for states like West Bengal or Tamil Nadu or Kerala, where leaders might feel constantly under threat of targeted probes designed to trigger this 30-day clause.
So for you listening to this, it forces a really fundamental question, doesn't it? Is this genuinely about cleaner politics and accountability?
Or is it a move that concentrates too much power, potentially sliding towards a more authoritarian style of governance, even if wrapped in the language of anti-corruption?
It's a genuine paradox. A tough one to call.
It really is, and it's a question that, frankly, everyone, citizens, politicians, the judiciary, eventually will have to grapple with. There aren't easy answers here, just choices with potentially huge consequences for how India is governed going forward.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. We've journeyed through the intricacies of these proposed bills, the political heat, the historical echoes. Yeah. It's clear this touches on a complex tangle of ethics, law, and raw political power.
It really does.
So what happens next? What's the immediate path forward for these controversial bills?
Okay, so the immediate next step is the Joint Parliamentary Committee, the JPC. The bills have been referred there. Now, the JPC is where detailed scrutiny happens. Debates can be lengthy, amendments can be proposed, maybe even rejected. They might hear from experts, stakeholders, perhaps even consider public feedback, though that varies.
So it's not a done deal yet.
Far from it. After the JPC submits its report, with or without recommending changes, the bills would have to go back to the Lok Sabha, and then critically, they also need approval from the Rajya Sabha, the upper house, where the government's numbers aren't as dominant.
Right. The Rajya Sabha could be a significant hurdle.
It could be. And even if they pass both houses, they still need the president's final assent to become law. So there are several stages still ahead and potential roadblocks.
It sounds like this debate is going to continue for quite some time.
Oh, I think we can be sure of that.
So as India watches this whole saga unfold, it really serves as a powerful reminder, doesn't it, that politics isn't just some abstract game of power. It's fundamentally about people, about governance, and about the core principles holding up a democracy.
Absolutely.
The big question hanging in the air is, will these laws, if they ever come into force, actually cleanse the system as intended? Will they bring that desired moral accountability?
Or will they perhaps unintentionally or even intentionally introduce a whole new set of challenges, further complicating and maybe even muddying the waters of Indian governance?
It feels like a high-stakes chess game.
Yeah.
And right now, it seems the game is far, far from over.